Hello, everyone. It's Stacy, and I want to welcome you to the 30-day seed experiment. So, we had a great little Zoom call, got a chance to update people and kind of give some opening thoughts, and was super excited to just post this online for everyone to listen to who didn't get to make the Zoom call, only to discover that I forgot to record the Zoom call. So that was a bummer. The good news is it was the first week, and so I'm doing most of the talking, so it's very easy for me to get back on and kind of update everyone else on what I already shared. The bummer is you missed some of the sharing that other people did in the call. However, next week, it will be a lot more group share as we kind of collectively share in the journey. So hopefully that one I won't forget to record because that will be much harder to duplicate. What I want to do though is I want to give you an overview of the experiment and then share some thoughts and kind of get everybody on the same page. So first off, let's just talk about the basic experiment. The experiment is that you take, and I should probably clarify, there's an experiment that my dad has been doing. Anybody who knows my dad has heard him talk about it, my entire life. And then several years ago, I realized this has been a way of life. It's something I've thought about we've always kind of lived with this idea of doing unselfish acts for people. So I did it. And I wrote a journal as I went because I'm super wordy and I never just write simple things. So I wrote entire journal entries of thoughts and processing as I went. And that's what this is coming out of, because as I did this experiment, and his experiment that I have tweaked a little bit, his experiment was you take 30 days, you read your Bible and ask the Lord to show you someone to do something unselfish for every day. You do the unselfish act, and then you write down what you did and the response. So that was the experiment. My struggle was a lot of stuff I did was more anonymous, or like I prayed for a nation that I used to serve in, and I don't know what the response was, right? Like I will probably never know this side of heaven how God used our prayers, but I came together with friends to pray for a nation that was struggling that we had all served in. So some of the things that I did, it was like, how do I write the response? But I wrote my responses. And so it really became my writing about responses was much more about my process and wrestling through different ideas. And again, even just the idea of, do we share what we do, or does the Lord say to let our giving be done in private? And so how do we justify that when this whole experiment is about sharing with everyone everything that you do, right? So I wrestle with these things all through. So I wrote an entire journal. And I've been sitting on this for a minute because I think it's really, like, as I keep going back to it, I'm like, there's some really great stuff in here. And I will share with you in a minute some of the things that just doing the experiment, even though it was a lifestyle for me, how it still challenged and tweaked and kind of gave me a really good tune-up in some areas in my heart. But I've been sitting on this, and partly I think because something felt like it was missing to me. And not too long ago, this fall, something came to me, and I will spare you the whole story of things, but I had been giving into a nation for a long time, and then I met someone in that nation, and then suddenly I have an invite to there was just some connections, and all of a sudden I realized I have been sowing into that nation for years, financially, because of some books I read and was just inspired by some things. But all of a sudden, this past year, God has been bringing me people from all around, like from that nation. I've got all these friends that are from that country that have suddenly just came into my life out of nowhere. And it hit me. What if part of that is reaping the fact that I've been sowing spiritually into that nation and financially by prayer and money and things? I've been sowing into this nation all these years. And suddenly I have all these people showing up out of that nation in my life. And I suddenly wondered if it was about sowing and reaping. And I realized that's what I want to add to this. I want to make this not just an experiment of doing unselfish acts. And I struggle with that because, again, and I'll get into that more. The language I keep struggling with it. And I've written about that in here some. But the language of sowing and reaping fixed it all for me. It just makes a tweak that kind of made it all make sense. So, and I think it gives a little more leeway to the long-term things. It's not always an immediate feedback loop. And I think that's part of what I struggle with is sometimes we can get so focused on the immediate, like I did this thing for the person and they loved me for doing it. And then I felt good because those feelings are wonderful, but sometimes we can get hooked on the feedback rather than being so willing to never get the glory. And for me, this focus, the shift from doing an unselfish act, I think when I focus on that, it's a lot of stuff that can, if I'm not careful, I can be focused on things that bring me glory. Like I give someone a coat and suddenly they needed the coat, they thanked me, they didn't see it coming. And now it's all about the thing that I did, right? And I can be being the one glorified a little bit. But when I focus on planting seeds, I may still give the same coat. But now I can be praying and asking the Lord, what are the seeds that we're sowing? Because now the coat is not the point. The coat is a mechanism to deliver the seeds. What are the seeds, Lord? Maybe it's that they need to know that God is their provider. So when they get the coat, it's so easy to go, I'm just sowing seeds into the kingdom. And I think the Lord wants you to know that he is your provider. And he wants you to see that he can provide out of nowhere. He can just drop something in out of the sky for you. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's a total stranger that I give a coat to, whatever. Or it could be like the Lord wants you to know that he sees you and he loves you and he's not forgotten you. I don't know what the seeds are. That's what I pray and I ask the Lord for. But the same gift can be a mechanism to bring a couple of different kinds of seeds, right? Now I can pray and water those seeds. And I can think about the long-term effect of what God is doing. So instead of focusing on the glory that I feel because I got to be a part of, it's so fun to be God's delivery person. I mean, it really is. But now I can shift and say, this is all about like the glory of what God wants to do on earth, to make it on earth as it is in heaven. So for me, changing the language actually really helped. Some little things that I had been wrestling with. So I have this 30-day seed experiment. This is, if you will join the Facebook group, there is, in the files section, I have posted this. And please consider it like copyrighted. I'm still working on it, but at some point I do hope to maybe put it on Amazon. So please be respectful of that. But anyways, for now, because people are piloting this whole program with me, I just want to give it away to everyone who wants to do it and then get your feedback on it. But AI generated a little, I was like, let's do some sort of an image. I've never tried AI before, so that was kind of fun. Like, give me an image with like prodigal son and sowing seeds. And here we are. So, it works. So this journal, I've got in here all kinds of entries. Some are long, some are short. I say long, like this one's just really short, right? There's my unselfish act and some brief thoughts. And then the rest of it is just a space for you to write your own experiment down, what you did that day and the thoughts that you have doing it. And some of them are a little bit longer. Some of them, maybe a page or two, I end up talking about like tips and tricks and ways to be prepared, ways to make this easier, how to think outside your comfort zone, how to like think of people you may not have thought before to do something for. So just kind of some of it's more practical, some of it's like wrestling with spiritual concepts, but it's all in here. I think I wrote it years ago and then I go back and I go through it and I go, oh, this is still ministering to me today because there's some good content in here. Objectively, I think so. So I'm excited to share it and get other people's thoughts. But I think the process is the important thing. So here's a few things that shifted in me when I did this, even though I kind of already had this whole mindset of giving, because again, this was like a cultural, like this was family language for us. This was something we lived and breathed every day. My dad was always taking people through this experiment. So it was so common in my life. But one of the things that I think really shifted for me was, I think sometimes you grow up thinking you need to be a good person and do the right things. And so if people ask you to do something, you're like, well, I should, because this is what a good person does. But then you feel that pressure of like, I have to be a good person and say yes, even if I don't want to. And so what I started noticing is I had felt pressure to maybe always do the right thing so much that now, even if it's something I would want to do, there's a part of me that immediately would like push back and be like, I don't want pressure to have to do something. Excuse me. So even if it was something I would have said yes to or jumped to offer, so many times people would ask me to do something. I'm like, now, if they hadn't asked me and if I had just said, hey, can I help with this? I would have been eager to do it. But the moment they ask, I feel this like crazy hidden pressure. And this has nothing to do with the other people. This is all about something in my head that I need to be free from. But I'll feel this immediate pressure that you have to do it. And now I'm like, I don't like pressure. So it was really, I noticed that when I did the 30-day experiment, that totally shifted for me. Because now I need to find someone to do something unselfish for every day. So if someone asks me, now I don't have the pressure of like hearing some word from God. He just dropped it on my doorstep. I don't have to ask like, well, I don't know. I still want to be obedient to the Lord, because sometimes people ask me to do something that's not from the Lord. And I get that. But when I'm asking the Lord, bring me people that you want me to serve every day. Where do you want me to sow? Who can I help? And then somebody comes to my doorstep with a need. Now I'm like, sweet, Lord, you made this easy. Like, I don't need to look for writing on the wall. They're literally at the doorstep. So I'll say yes. My friend Leanne said, when a need shows up on your doorstep, you don't need to ask for yes. You just need to you need to give the Lord freedom to say no, but the yes is already in front of you. So unless he says no, you already know that you're supposed to do it, which I thought was such an interesting reframe. Anyways, so I noticed that my heart started shifting. So now when people would ask me to do stuff, I was actually joyful about doing it because it made my job so easy. I don't have to look very hard. You've already given me the thing to do, Lord. Thank you. Now it's super easy to join in with excitement to the thing in front of me. Whereas before I would have resentment sometimes and just a little begrudging in my spirit. So that happened. The other thing that I've noticed long-term effects is when now somebody asks me to do something and I'm not doing the experiment and I get a little grinchy in my soul about it. I've so many times caught myself going, if I was doing the 30-day experiment, I'd actually be excited that they asked because I'd be needing something to do today for somebody. So in my mind, I would go back to that. So what if I just pretend that I'm doing my little experiment again, and now I can be excited about, great, I should be happy to serve you. So for me, that was a big shift. Another thing that I felt like as I've been doing experiencing God, and my I've been looking at my wrong notes, and that's been a little confusing. I took away the sheet that had the actual notes from my class. That'll help. As I'm going, the notes don't make sense. So we've been doing experiencing God in church. And I haven't done that since college, y'all. It's been forever, but it's been really fun to go back through it. And in there, he talks so much about learning to listen to the Father and how Jesus said, I only do what the Father tells me to do. And that there's an immediate response. If God tells me to do it, I do it. But to do that, you have to know that you're hearing his voice. So for me, this is such a fun practice that I get the practice every day of going, Lord, will you speak to me? What do you sound like? And for my friend Linda, it's like God just tells her things. Go talk to that person. I don't usually get that. But for me, I'm like sitting still and God brings people to me. So he tends to drop things on my doorstep. And I would say, I told him earlier today, there's flowers and there's bumblebees. Both have a purpose in the kingdom and they need each other. But bumblebees go and make the thing. They go to the flowers. They make things happen. The flower just sits there and the aroma draws people to it. It doesn't actually make anything happen. It's just present and available and all the bees come. For some reason, all my life, there's been more of that where I will sit by myself and then the bees come and God just brings people. That's okay. That's how God speaks to me. And it may not be that he's speaking, but it's how he works through me, right? But my friend Linda goes to the park and God says, go talk to that person. And I kind of want more of that. So being in this group is super fun because I get to hear how God's moving in her and I get to keep asking the Lord, if you want to speak to me, teach me to know it. Teach me to respond. If you will speak, I'm going to try to act and listen because I think sometimes we want more words from God, but we didn't obey the last time he told us something. So we haven't stewarded the last word he gave us. So it's hard for him to want to give us another one because we haven't been faithful yet. So we have to be faithful with the little to get more. This practice is all about learning to be faithful. It is learning to ask God to speak, practicing listening, and taking that risk of faith to say, I think God told me to do this, and stepping out. And then there's this immediate reward system of, oh, now I know why he said that because I'm looking for it every day. And there's this quick turnaround of, I feel like he said, plant the seed. And then a lot of times there will be an immediate feedback on that. And then you get confirmation. So it starts building faith. And the beautiful thing about that is as that faith starts to build, as you learn to hear and understand and trust him and only go as he leads, where he leads, then when stuff happens in life, you already have this history with him. You already know exactly, when everything blows up or when you get this, God's telling you to leave your job, why would I do that? I have a good job. And suddenly you've got this leading to do that. That might seem really foreign, but if you've been practicing hearing his voice all the way along, you're like, yeah, I know what God sounds like. So I know that's him. So it's easier to obey because I know that he's speaking in the first place. I build those muscles by practicing things like this. So this is such a great exercise. Another thing that I think this really does is, I think insecurity is very self-centered. It's very self-focused, and depression is all self-focused. We have a world that is all about taking care of our own needs. And the Bible talks about how when we try to hold on to our life, we find that we lose it. But when we're willing to lose it, we gain it. This is such an I just lost the word. Exercise, that's the one. It just left me. It's such an exercise and learning to see beyond my needs. I am looking every day around me. Who are you? Do you want me to talk to that person? That person? Like, where's a need? So as I'm learning to look for how God wants to use me, where he wants me to sow into the world, I'm getting my eyes off of myself. And then I have the joy of partnering with him in creation, in bringing it on earth as it is in heaven. As we start creating earth as it is in heaven, and partnering him with the way he was literally created us to do from the beginning of the Garden of Eden. That command has been from day one, and we see it showing up over and over and over. The Israelites are supposed to take the kingdom, or the Jewish, understanding of God, and expand it. Now Christianity is supposed to take what you've been given, be like Jesus, take the kingdom and multiply it. All throughout the Bible, this has always been the same thing. But we get off and we start worrying about making our own life, holding on and making it right, and all the things that America especially has told us that our life should be about. And then we get depressed because we're so self-focused. But when we get back into that flow of doing exactly what God says we were made to do in the first place, all of a sudden life comes open to us, and depression lifts, and purpose, we find our purpose, and all these things. I think as we do this, it's amazing how much some of the nonsense of the enemy that we just like, the funk that just hangs on us, can get broken off. So anyways, lots of good things that can come out of this little experiment. And that's coming from someone who, again, this wasn't like some novel concept to me, all the more so when it's somebody who's not maybe walked in this kind of thinking on a daily basis to begin with. So I want to tell another thing I want to say is it's about learning to be interruptible. My Bible teacher in high school used to say, all the other teachers would be like, knock before you enter, and he put a sign on his door, don't knock, just come on in. Interruptions are things of God. And I remember him talking to me about that Jesus's ministry was a ministry of interruptions. And you can kind of trace, he was going and he got stopped here, and he's going here and somebody touches him, and there's all these interruptions along the way. And he was always willing to be interrupted if it was the Lord. And I struggle with being so focused on where I'm going that I don't have time for interruptions right now because I've got to get there. So I think some of this is about learning to have margin so that the Lord can interrupt us, learning to listen and learning to be interruptible, which I think is really following in the steps of Jesus. So good things. Couple last things. I'm going to share a quick little story. Again, I talked about flowers and bees, and like for me, when I've done this, I've wanted this kind of story. It has not been my kind of story, but I do love the story. And I think this time as I do it, I'm really hoping to get more of this. I'm hoping to be more intentional about really listening to the Lord and trying to get a picture before my day starts. Because before it was like, as the day went and I got the interruptions, that's important. I also want maybe more clear direction sometimes ahead of time. So, but this lady that I knew was part of a church, and they would take the youth and do these kind of exercises to learn to hear the Lord and encourage people. So they took the youth and they said, ask God to give you a picture of somebody. They said, draw a picture for someone, ask God what you want to draw for somebody, and then ask him to show you who you're supposed to give it to. And then they went out into the community and looked for the person that God had put on their heart. So this little girl and her mom go into the store, and she had she drew a picture, and it was just she's like 5-6 years old. She's little. It was just smiley faces, a whole bunch of like big smiley faces all over the picture. And her mom's like, okay, this is nice. Like, what is God going to do with this? Right. And so they go into this store, and the little girl's like, I saw a person with a red dress. And so they walk all through Walmart or whatever it was. No red dress, no woman, didn't see it. And the mom's like disappointed because she didn't want her daughter to feel like God failed her. And I think honestly, the daughter had all kinds of faith for this. I think the mom, best I understand the story, was kind of like, oh, I hope someone shows up, but like, who knows? So they're walking out of the store, and a lady walks in a red dress, and she goes, Mommy, that's the lady that God showed me. So she's like, okay. So she walks over and she goes, here, God had me draw this for you. And the lady's like, that's nice. And she's about to walk off, and she goes, he told me that's what he thinks, how he feels when he thinks about you. He's not mad at all. He's happy. He loves you. You make him smile. And like, that was it. Like, you make him smile. He's happy when he thinks about you. And the lady just starts weeping. And she had walked away from her faith and been doing some things she knew were not right. And she had just been really wrestling with these lies from the enemy that God is so mad and disappointed and sad about you, that he could never delight in you. And so literally, I want to cry every time that story. And she was so locked up in shame over what the enemy had been telling her about her choices. And God sends this little child with a picture of smiley faces just to say he's happy when he thinks about you. And just the way that broke, and it just changed this woman, like completely set her free from that. So I love that, but that wasn't something she was doing on a daily basis. This was God's sweetness to send them out. And because she took time to listen, it all of a sudden things came up. Because she took time to listen, God was able to go. They were interruptible, they were intentional. And so this is about like positioning ourselves that, Lord, if there's someone who needs lies broken off of them, what seeds do you want me to plant? How do you want me to love someone for you? Because we're his hands and feet here on the earth, and he has chosen to limit himself so that he can move through us. And it's just being in a position to say, I'm eager to go be that, Lord. So speak to me, for your servant is listening. I think that is the heart of this. Speak, for your servant is listening, and I will obey when you speak. So I will tell you that my first journal entry was really about wrestling with feeling like I don't have time or energy or money to pour into this. And so I realized this is a war on my poverty mindset. And I just want to remind you that the Lord will always equip us to do what he's called us to do. He will never, if he's not broke, he's got plenty of time, energy, money, and he can bend all the rules. So as we go and do this, I think we can just trust that he will back us. Anytime we step out on a limb and we want to give in any way, he will back us and make sure that we have the resources. And in fact, I think about that because when my dad does this, he will give, he will tell his classes, I can't do this, but he has a lot of resources. And he'll say like, hey, if you want to give to someone, you don't have the money, you bring me the receipt and I'll back it. So it's a low risk thing for them. I think it's really neat when it costs me something too. But I also appreciate that sometimes I have a burden to do something for somebody that is way beyond my ability, and to know that like, I have an earthly father, but more importantly, I have a heavenly father who goes, if I put it on your heart, believe me, I can resource you to do it. If it's on your heart to love these people, it's on mine too. So let's go do it together. And then as we move forward, he can absolutely provide the resources that we need to love people. So I just want to kind of, there's objections sometimes to doing this because of what it takes to do it. And yet the Lord is not in a poverty place for this. He is more than willing to give us the abundance of all the things that we need to do the job. And that's physical resources, emotional resources, financial resources, all the things. The other thing I just want to mention, and then I'm jumping off, this has gotten a little long, sorry, but hopefully it's been useful. But variations. You can do this any way you want. So it may be that you say, I'm going to sow seeds of prayer all month long. Great, do it that way. It may be that you go, you know what? I've got this person that I have to work with that is really challenging, or I'm having a hard time with my spouse, or whatever it may be. Maybe there is a person, a child, whatever it may be, someone in your life that has been a place of friction. And you just say, what if the Lord may just lead you? I want you to take a month to do unselfish acts, sow seeds into that person's life. Ask me every day how I want you to do it. Maybe that's it. So this doesn't have to be strangers. It doesn't have to be people you know. It doesn't have to be different people. It could be one person. There's super flexibility here. This is your experiment, your walk with the Lord. This is just for us to come along and challenge each other to do it together. As the Bible says, to spur one another on towards love and acts of service, love and good works. So we want to spur each other on. So that's the point of the Facebook group, that we can come in and the Zoom calls to keep each other going. And like I said, I've got this, I think I showed you this little journal. So go through, write, whether it's a bullet point or essays like I do, that's up to you. I literally think I already have book 2 in my head because as we're starting this, I have all these new thoughts that weren't recorded in this. So I've been percolating a lot. Also, hopefully I'll be able to keep posting as I've been stockpiling all sorts of little snippets and quotes and anecdotes from people who've done similar kinds of acts of generosity on Facebook, that I'm hopefully will be able to shift over to this site and post it because there's so many things out there of other kinds of encouragement and just sweet moments where people are doing these things. And we love these stories. We're wired for this. So let's enter in and encourage each other as we go. So thanks for joining me. Hope to see you on the next Zoom.